Good day, class. I will be your teacher for today. I am Sir Roy C. Borromeo Jr., that's ROY from Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology. And today, we will be discussing about volcanoes. But before our lesson, let's have our basic house rules of our class. So first one, make sure to attentively listen to the speaker, to me, or to your classmates. Second, only unmute the microphone if told so or want to answer. Third one, respect each participant. And lastly, enjoy the lesson for better learning. Okay class, now wear your best smiles for we are going to check our attendance by printing my screen. Smile now! Okay, now that we have checked our attendance, now let's proceed to our lesson for today. But let's give it a twist. Let's go to the world of Pokemon to discuss what is all about volcanoes. Class, now this is Pokemon Volcanoes. Let's start. Okay, here is Professor Oak and he'll be giving us the objectives of our lesson for today. So, Professor Oak, would you please? The objectives for today is all about defining what volcano is, identify parts of a volcano, define the different types of volcanoes, and lastly, compare active and inactive volcanoes. Class, before we proceed to our lesson proper, let's have a review activity or a motivational activity entitled, You Can't Guess Me, Volcano! The students will guess what word or phrase that can be created through the combination of hints like letters, features, or symbols. Now, let's start! Here is the first combination. Okay, that is correct. It is volcano. On to the next one. You got it right too. Perfect, that is crater. Okay, on the third one. Correct, it is composite. Fourth one. You are great, class. It is active. And last one. Perfect. It is magma. Those words are connected to our topic for today. Let's proceed to the discussion proper. So now, what is a volcano? Based on National Geographic, a volcano is an opening in a planet or moon's crust through which molten rock, hot gases, and other materials erupt. Volcanoes often form a hill or mountain as layers of rock and ash build up from repeated eruptions. The structure of a volcano grows with every eruption. Below the surface, lava is called magma and builds up in underground reservoirs. Magma and other volcanic materials are channeled to the surface where they are expelled through a crack or hole. The main parts of a volcano include the magma chamber, conduits, vents, craters, and slopes. Onwards, let's proceed to the parts of a volcano. As mentioned earlier, there are 5 main parts, namely vent, slope, crater, conduit, and magma chamber. The first part of a volcano is vent. A vent is an opening on the surface of a volcano that emits lava, gases, ash, or other volcanic materials. Some volcanoes have multiple vents, but there is only one main vent or central vent. An operational definition of main vent is the opening where volcanic materials emerge from the primary conduit. The second one is slope. The slopes are the sides or flanks of a volcano that radiate from the main or central vent. Slopes vary in gradient depending on the intensity of the volcano's eruptions and the materials that are expelled. Explosive eruptions of gas, ash, and solid rock create steep slopes. Slow-flowing molten lava creates gradual slopes. Onwards, at the top of the volcano, the central vent may be surrounded by a bowl-shaped depression called a crater. Craters form when explosive eruptions occur. Eruptions are more explosive when magma contains a lot of gases and the volcano forcefully expels a large quantity of ash, rock fragments along with those gases. The fourth part of a volcano is called conduit. During an eruption, these volcanic materials move from the magma chamber toward the surface by a pipe-like passageway called a conduit. Some volcanoes have a single conduit, while others have a primary conduit with one or more additional conduits that branch off it. The last main part of a volcano is called the magma chamber. The magma chamber is a hollow within the volcano where magma and gases accumulate. The second part of our discussion is about the types of volcano. There are three types of volcano, namely shield, composite, and cinder cone volcanoes. The first type of volcano is cinder cone, which is short and steep. Cinder cones have a simple structure with a single opening. They are composed mainly of ash and dark volcanic rock called scoria. A single conduit leads from the magma chamber to a central vent. Magma that erupts from a cinder cone has a high viscosity. Because of its thick consistency, the gas in the lava causes it to erupt forcefully. In the cinder cone vent emits a powerful blast of gas-filled lava along with pieces of rock blasted. The emissions harden quickly and break into small particles called cinders. The resulting structure is a volcano with steep sides rising no more than 1,000 feet above the ground. Cinder cones have a flat top with a wide circular crater and are made of layers that form each eruption. The individual layers vary in slope depending on the intensity of the eruptions that formed them. An example of cinder cone volcano is the Smith volcano, also known as Mount Babuyan. It is a cinder cone on Babuyan Island. The second type of volcano is stratovolcanoes, which are tall and majestic. Stratovolcanoes are also called composite volcanoes and are built of layers of volcanic debris that rise thousands of feet above their bases. Eruptions from stratovolcanoes vary in the materials they expel. Layers may be composed of cooled liquid lava, ash, or solid debris, which produces volcanoes with steep sides and a conical shape. Some of the most picturesque mountains in the world, Mount Fuji, Mount Rainier, and Mount Shasta, are stratovolcanoes. These volcanoes have a central vent surrounded by a crater, and some may have multiple vents. We have a stratovolcano in the Philippines, and it is the most popular, which is Mount Mayon. The last type of volcano is shield volcanoes, which are low and slow. Shield volcanoes are named for their shape. The flattened dome has gentle slopes that resembles the shape of a curved shield. In addition to a central vent, these volcanoes sometimes have multiple vents around the top of the dome and the upper portion of the slopes. As magma rises from the magma chamber, the conduit branches into secondary passages. These passages lead to vents on the flanks. Flanks are areas around the slopes that are adjacent to the crater. Shield volcano eruptions are primarily lava flows, which contribute to their gradual slopes. The lava cools slowly and spreads out over a wide area, producing slopes of only 5 to 10 degrees. The Hawaiian Islands are made up of shield volcanoes, including the largest active shield volcano in the world. An example of shield volcanoes in the Philippines is the Mount Mariveles. Let's move forward to the last topic of our lesson, which are classification of volcanoes. First, on the general classification of volcanoes. Volcanoes are classified as active, dormant, or extinct. Active volcanoes have a recent history of eruptions. They are likely to erupt again. Dormant volcanoes have not erupted for a very long time but may erupt at a future time. And lastly, the extinct volcanoes are not expected to erupt in the future. The Philippines also has a classification of volcanoes. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, classifies volcanoes according to its eruptive history. The first one is active volcano. Active volcanoes erupted within historical times within the last 600 years. Accounts of these eruptions were documented by man, erupted within the last 10,000 years based on the analysis of material from young volcanic deposits. The other classification of volcanoes in the Philippines are potentially active volcanoes, which are volcanoes morphologically young-looking but with no historical or analytical records of eruption but may erupt in the future. The other one is inactive volcanoes. These volcanoes have no recorded eruptions, physical form has been intensively weathered and eroded, and bearing deep and long gullies. These volcanoes may not erupt in the future. That will be all our lessons for today. So now let's move forward to our activity proper. To measure your learnings for today about volcanoes, our first activity is entitled, What's Volcano For? I will give you a question and you will brainstorm for it for 1 minute. This is the question. What would you use volcano if one is spotted in your location? That's great! It is a great idea indeed. Now let's go to our next activity, which is entitled, Are You Comparing Me? Volcano. Based on the discussions of volcanoes, you students will find things that remind you of the lesson for today, which is volcano. After that, you students will share why you chose those things as related to the topic. Now, let's start. Very good, class! That is a great representation of our topic. After representing the topic, now let's go to the part 3 of our activity, which is entitled Active, Inactive. Since social media platforms are widespread nowadays, we will treat them as volcanoes. I will show you different social media platforms, and then you students will determine if you are active or inactive with those particular platforms. So now let's start. First one is Facebook. Okay. Instagram. Good. Twitter. Great. TikTok. YouTube. Netflix. Google. Well, you are indeed an active student. Alright class, before we end our meeting, I'll be informing you that you will have a quiz and assignment in our Google Classroom. And to give you a preview of the quiz and assignment, here is their directions. First, in the quiz, there's part 1 and part 2. The part 1 is Line Me Up Please. You will be arranging the words into the respective boxes and put the words that you think describe the given in the box. The second part is Me and My Volcanoes. You students will analyze yourself and the volcano. You will define what active and inactive volcano is. Give one example each by comparing the two side by sides using the table given. After defining, you students will then write your characteristics which you think is active or inactive. And now for your assignment, it is entitled Angry Volcano. That will be our lesson for next meeting. First one, what will happen if a volcano erupts? How volcano does erupt? What are the things to do before, during, and after a volcanic eruptions? And that will be all. See you in the next meeting. Goodbye, class!